Greetings, this is Warrior King, and the time has come for the lions and the lioness to tell their own story. This is the lion's voice. Give thanks and praise for the wonderful blessing that's been poured on me. Give thanks and praise. Jah use I as an instrument to set the people free. Jah give her the powers to chant. Jah give her the powers to chant. Rastafari, the lion's voice.
What are you waiting for? Come together, calling from near and far. Know who you are. What are you waiting for? Rally up, it takes the dust. What are you waiting for? Ancestors paved the way for us. Yes, I am Ketis Oyonde, asking, what are you waiting for to come together? The time has come for the lions to tell our own story. This is the lion's voice.
Yes, Jah people, this is Michael Shamai representing. I will say, hear the lion voice, saying it is time for the lions and the lionesses to tell their own story. King David killed Goliath with a stone, we original dread.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. But people, open your eyes, wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Rastafari, live it.
Amina, the time has come for the lioness to tell our own story. No surrender, no retreat, we are Jaja soldier. Rougher than the streets, tougher than a boulder. Bigging up lion's voice. Now put it, I Jalifa said that.
I will never stop, hail the Most High, and I will never stop, call Rastafari. Blessed love, this is Kushite representing for the Lion's Voice. We are here to tell our own story, Rastafari.
Yeah, David Dread of Steel Pulse, and I'm saying hail to the lion voice because it's time that the lion have its voice, have its own story. Says I'm stepping out here. Hear me now. Yeah, the lion's voice. Raw.
Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice.
Jano, I'm so hungry, bro. I haven't eaten all day. Like, my head started to hurt me too. Like, what more could I eat right now?
What about a city samosa? Get your samosa, a fusion of Indian, Jamaican and African culture. City samosas, the best samosas in the city.
The second beast was given the power to give breath unto the image of the first beast so that the image could speak, and caused all who refused to worship the image to be killed. It also forced the people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive the mark on their right hands and in their forehead. Gone down in the new world order, I feel work harder, I feel pray harder. harder. Babylon them coming with them microchip, and them prison cell that's the new slave ship. New world order, new world order. Happy work harder, happy pray harder. Babylon them coming with them microchip, and them video game that's the new matrix. It's a new world order. Them start bleaching, diverse doctrine. Them start preaching. Angels for the stars they reaching. They're falling, never hear the lion calling. New world order. Them fight against the poor. Machine and robot that sweep them floor. Machine and robot that run them stores. So them create disease ones without any cure. The new world order, new world order. Happy work harder, happy pray harder. Babylon them coming with them microchip, and them prison cell that's the new slave ship. New world order, new world order. Happy work harder, happy pray harder. Babylon them coming with them microchip, and them video game that's the new matrix. It's a new world order. Them pan cell phone. Families don't even talk in their home. Village farmers get murdered by drones. Village mistress get murdered by stones. New world, so you better call Tyrone. Tell him prepare, use the whole earth a war zone. New world, Satan lost for the throne, so we must accept us and leave him alone. The new world order, new world order. Happy work harder, happy pray harder. Babylon them coming with them microchip, and them prison cell that's the new slave ship. New world order, new world order. Happy work harder, happy pray harder. Babylon them coming with them microchip, and them video game that's the new matrix. It's a new world order. Check the energy, make it so hard to go have a family. Man, woman and child, well that are the trinity. Preserve the bloodline, Solomonic dynasty. Vatican them say you beat at them malice and them thief. Harvest and them reap for the global elite. As when the elder him said, don't you weep, the lion destroyed.
What do you have to tell the people about Rastafari?
Light to the world. The king of kings and the conquering line of the tribe of Judah. I left himself. Where's my ruler? Hey yo! Yeah. Hear them high, hear the black king on the 23rd of July. So tell them guy who praise God up in the sky, it's a lie. The Almighty living on your night. From ancient time them a try. Them Romans know them just up in them suit and ties. Criminals ain't got no alibi, they stole my people. Then them comes without them genocide.
Are you talking about slavery?
Them couldn't kill the lion where come conquer Judah tribe.
Who?
Go through tribulation, I and I strive, see sufferation, I and I still rise. That's why we tell them in America, live Rastafari in every ghetto area. We come if you tell them in a Toronto, straight at it.
Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of His chosen Queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwasi Bonsu, aka the Dejazmatch Kwasi, aka Ras Kwasi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Pan-African Happy Man. I'm a creative industry attorney, I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an actionist, and right now I am the host of Lion Talk Live. Welcome to Lion Talk Live, and welcome to the Lion Voice Network, where the lions are telling our own story. We are here tonight with an epic episode, a first for the channel. History will be made tonight. Our first guest from St. Kitts and Nevis. We're going to go into some history, and then we're going to go into the Caribbean Rastafari Organization has elected a new chair. Last strong, we spoke to the co-chair,
Sister Aishiba. Now we have the chair. So we're going to continue. The unity is happening in real time. At the same time, we see India and Pakistan declare war. You know what I mean? Armageddon, wars and rumors of war all over the planet. Yemen, America said them stop the bombing. But Yemen said them not stop bomb Israel. Gideon family. And the unity is happening. Ibrahim Traore has made education free. And we just had a huge global celebration of Ibrahim Traore after U.S. General Langley passed some remarks about the general and ignited the spark of the Pan-African spirit that people thought was dead. We saw it rise across the four corners of creation. In the midst of that, in the midst of everything that I'm talking about, the Rastafari community is quietly coming together. The Pan-African movement globally, most African youths, the first time they hear about One Africa is in a reggae song sung by a Rastafari creative. So we have been at the forefront of the Pan-African earliest time, following the footsteps of Kadamawi Haile Selassie I. And now that the time has come on the planet where the global awakening and the uprising is happening, Rastafari is quietly getting its house in order. And this is why having Rastafari independent, non-aligned media is so important at this time, because we can't go to CNN to see what go on. We can't go to BET or MTV to see what's happening. We have to tell our own story. And so that he rose I gave our inspiration, the ability, the knowledge to execute on building the fastest growing Rastafari platform on the planet. And before we go any further, let me take the time to big up the Lion Pride. If you subscribe, you're part of the Lion Pride. Big up on yourself. We just passed 38,000 strong. We're on our way to 40,000, and it's because of the item. It's not I'm just obedient to the king and doing the work, but it's the I could be here by myself, but the item supported. Give thanks for all of the comments, you know what I mean, the messages. Big up the Lion Pride on Patreon. That's the economic engine. We do have a platform where one can contribute. Our model here, if this is your first time joining us, our model here is crowdfunding. We depend on the audience. That's the only way you can truly be independent within the media space, is if you're audience funded. Once you start dealing with sponsors and these things, it becomes sticky. Yes, we will have sponsors, and we have many Rastafari businesses that have risen up, that are rising to the challenge to say, yes, we need our own ecosystem in this time. So we will have sponsors, we'll continue, but the backbone is the brethren and sistren from across creation. Big up John Rogers, our latest addition to the Patreon family, who just came on board. Before that, big up Selassie, Rastafari out of Australia came on board. We are now 34 Fire Angels strong. Small in number, we're trying to get to 100. So we're asking the ones, we're going to have our first Zoom meeting this Sunday. So be prepared for that, Patreon family. We're going to be just reasoning, networking, building a force, you know what I mean, like minds. In anything we're doing right now, we're preaching radical economic collective security. You know what I mean? That is the way that we will defeat the beast. None of us have no big money to give to anything, but we have a $5 or a $10 that we can circulate, we can redirect. And if we do that with the numbers, that is where the power lies. So again, I ask this audience, when we bring guests on the platform, we want to practice this radical collective security where wherever their product or service, they give the information, go and support. You know what I mean? Our sponsors, the same thing. You know, these are all Rastafari Pan-African businesses. If we don't capitalize our businesses and our economic base, we can't help Ibrahim Traore. Better with us pack up and go where we are, because right now capital is required to build the alternative. As Babylon fall, we have to build the alternative, and that requires capital. No one is coming to save us. Nobody thinks that what we value is important but I and I. So we have to build it under the banner of Rastafari, and we ready to stand for it. Haile Selassie has never failed so I and I confident, and as the IDMC, it's growing. So give thanks to every one of the item, the Action Lion Pride. I'm noticing, I don't even know how you do it, but on YouTube you can do a little $2 super chat here, there. I'm seeing them coming in. I don't even know how you do that, but to the ones who are doing it, give thanks, because it helps. The little £2 here, $2 Australian there, two, all over the world we're seeing it start to trickle. So we love that too. Action Lion Pride working. Those who don't have the money, they're liking, they're commenting, they're sharing the content. This is a revolution. This is not just a YouTube vibration. Also, make sure that we have your email address. Go to the website and make sure that we have your email direct to consumer. If we're still moving, we're not stopping because of the platform. So Rastafari independent. We have a vision to build a that pales in comparison to no one on the planet. And again, it's going to be built collectively, and I are going to witness it, and it's a joy to be a part of the uprising. Big up the Watch and Peep. You know what I mean? We did over 60,000 views in April. You know what I mean? So big up everyone watching the content. Over 4,000 hours of content consumed in the month of April. So big up on yourself, the people watching, and go forward and watch the whole episodes. If you're just joining the channel, we have some of the great elders. We have some ancestors. Over 1,000 videos on the platform. So go when you have time. Just sip up your ital snack. Take a whole of meditation and go forward into the catalog and trust I. Whole heap of wisdom, knowledge. We have scholars, we have grassroots, PhDs, all Rastafari and Pan-African perspective, high level reasoning. That is what we are here, and we have that tonight. Before we bring forward the guests, let me big up Ramia King Design. Anytime you see I'm sipping coconut water tonight, that's a Rastafari business that we're supporting. Big up Wally King's CMOS Life. Big up Wally King's graphics and design. We also are supporting Frontline Books and Publishing Raseku Tafari. Our sponsor. If you haven't seen our first episode of the Reading Ras on the Front Line, it's a brand new show on the platform. We sit down with Sekou Tafara and we talk about different books. Check it out on the channel. Support Frontline Books. This is our Rastafari own book publisher. We support the reading of physical books over here. You know what I mean? Yes, the internet is nice, but we have to read physical books. This is a Armageddon. The internet can crash, and then what? You know what I mean? We have to have access to our information. Big up brother Carl Philpotts, also coming on board as a sponsor with the testimony of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I, the first defender of the faith. Carl Philpotts, we're going to have the link, start sharing the link in the description. So stay tuned for that. Again, we're just slowly building out. We have some other reasonings that we're doing with other Rastafari businesses. We're building out our ecosystem family. So have patience with us. You're going to see it evolve. You're going to see the commercials, them get better over time. And, as we have the resources for hire editors and things. But we're starting it from ground and building it with the item. So give thanks for your patience and the love that I feel here. I don't feel no hate. Me, I gotta tell the item the truth. I feel nothing but love from the item. So big up the whole global family. All right, housekeeping out of the way. Family, tonight we are making history. Where are my St. Kitts and Nevis family? If you are watching from the Caribbean, put in the chat where you're watching from. All of my Lion Pride, as you come in, make sure you check in. Let us know where you're watching from around the world. Tonight, we are headed down into the Caribbean to the twin islands of St. Kitts and Nevis. This brethren is one of the elders that come out of this space. First time we will be learning about the history of Rastafari in St. Kitts and Nevis. It's a history on this channel, family, and it's a great joy. He also works for the government, social development. We'll find out about that. We'll also find out about his new position. He's the newly elected chair of the Caribbean Rastafari Organization. That means every island have different Rastafari organizations, and they come together in an umbrella, which is the CRO. This brethren is the chair along with Sister Aishiba, who we interviewed last strong. So we're going to hear about that and the recent conference in Antigua. We're going to talk about the future of Rastafari in the Caribbean, international black repatriation. Get your ital snacks, family. Get your meditation ready. Help I to welcome all the way from beautiful island of St. Kitts and Nevis, Ras Iroy. Welcome, Isis.
Rastafari. Yeah, man, I greet you in the divine name of His
Royal
Imperial Majesty.
greetings, my family.
Haile Selassie the First. And
I
Empress
see
Mene.
some Lion Pride checking in. Rasta Roots Life checking in from Kentucky. Yes, I froze. Block up again.
Aye.
Isis.
Rastafari. Yeah, man, I greet you in the divine and majestic name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie the First and Empress Mene, our great ancestors, the great gods and goddesses of this eternal black race. Yeah, man, one perfect love. It's a joy being here, you know. Big up St. Kitts and Nevis and the region.
Give thanks for blessing us on this platform. We have a tradition here. We're going to ask the eye to step into our iritical time machine and take us to the moment of the eye birth and to share with us your origin story. You know, how did the eye come here? What was it like growing up? What year you were born? And bet the whole settings. Give us the whole settings. Blockbuster.
Rastafari.
Isis.
Well, from my birth, you would realize I have a lot of grace, but I'm not so old.
Okay.
You also realize that the journey into Rastafari, even though I'm recognized as an elder among some, amongst others, I'm still very much a youth within Rastafari. But just like many, I'm doing the work, answering to the call of Farai, which only started,
all right,
you know,
family.
I
see the family checking in one by one. You know that Wi-Fi the guy is one of the characters on this platform, and sometime. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, man, bless at any time.
Yeah, I was saying that I seen as a youth within the trad.
Seen by some, you know, and by many others as an elder, because I've been on the trad for a while.
All right, family.
But even as a youngster growing up,
nights, but you know that we like to cook the sip. Yes, I.
Yeah, man. Even as a youth growing up, I would have seen many bearded and dreadlocks man moving around the communities and doing their thing. And for me, the interest was always there.
Yes.
Because I was born on the 6th of February.
Okay.
Same date as Bob Marley.
Okay.
And so, I mean, television and so on wasn't so popular. So the music, you know, so my whole earth there was spent just listening to Bob Marley music. And of course, you can't listen to Bob Marley music so in depth and not come out with some high level of consciousness. And that's exactly what happened to I and I. You know, topple and double with all the fights and the discrimination within society, going school and, you know, having to stand up against unjust laws as a youth. You know, you begin to get the struggles and the fight down. You know, and it was at them times seeking, you know, seeking any youth, any black youth to start that soul searching for a level of black consciousness. It's almost automatic that they will end up in Rastafari.
Haile.
Because we all know Rastafari carries that burden. We carry that duty, you know, that legacy, that African liberation, that African redemption. We are the ones who brought it here. And we carried it in our loins, and we are again pushing that energy throughout the region. You know, and so being a lover of history, I would have been introduced to guys like Marcus Garvey, so, you know, at an early age in high school and sixth form and so on. And there are times I would sit down and see my life, see my life in the image of the man, you know, looking at their struggles and the fight down. And I guess, as I say, man, after starting to experience these kind of things, Rastafari was the only solution, you know, the only solace for I and I, you know, the only place of comfort, you know. And after realizing, you know, what a blessed life that I and I can endure, you know, by simply adjusting I and I principles and so on. Virgin, there's no turning back.
Haile.
I and I,
How old was the eye when the eye put on your covenant?
I was, let's see, I was in my early 30s. Yeah, it was about
Okay,
30 or so.
so you were full adult before
I
you.
was an adult. Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes, yes.
And that is one of the things that, for me, you didn't grow up living into it, and so I did a lot of research, you know,
Yes.
into Rastafari, and one of the most important thing was what is holding us back, you know, I and I issues, I and I challenges, and so I started to search on them levels, you know, and then I realized one of the earliest move is the organization of Rastafari. And so right there, I started searching for organizations of Rastafari within St. Nevis. And quite obviously, I was directed to the Nyabingi. So my groundings are in Nyabingi. And I am a Nyabingi.
Yes,
And as I go within Rastafari, I've been exposed to, you know, different ones and ones, learning of the different, as we say, tribes within I movement.
yes.
You know, the teachings of Elder Zambo in St. Kitts and Ras Dabo of St. Kitts. You know, these were very important to I, for I groundings. Had the opportunity to travel to Jamaica and visit Sonny Ja, and we also had the opportunity to visit Ras Bonagees, because
Okay.
at that time I was still carrying the name Delroy. And when I introduced myself to Ras Bonagees, he said to I, he asked I my name. I said, Delroy. He said, well, you no longer belong to the Del. You belong to the great I am. So you are Iroy.
I.
So from that day, I carry the name Iroy. You know, and so he was blessed to be named by a man like Ras Bonagees, ancient Nyabingi elder. And so my works, you know, continue within our local organization called the One Love Rastafari Movement. We held many positions there, including chair. Um, and then, of course, we would have grown into what we call the ORU, And the
Okay.
ORU itself is the Organization of Rastafari in Unity.
Okay.
But before that, I would have heard of many other getting together of Rastafari and Sinkis Nevis, because I mean Rasta and Sinkis Nevis would have started early in the 1970s
Okay.
with the movement of the federal maple and federal palm from from north to south. Ones and ones from Sinkit Nevis would have had the opportunity to visit Jamaica.
Okay. Well, that was the ferry that used to be in the Caribbean.
Right. There were actually two
Okay.
of them.
Two of them.
The federal maple and the federal palm. So they
Okay.
used to cross each other, which is something that we desperately need to revisit.
Yes.
Yeah, man, because I
But
can
I think there's a reason why they stopped that, because from the elders that I've heard, it really spread the culture from island to island, because regular people could just afford to travel.
it was a strategic
So
move, yeah.
I think it's a strategic move why that thing is not operational. But continue.
Strategically, we have to bring it back.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have I would have been also influenced by some of my cousins who were Rastafari. So you had different names like the House of Dreads, you have the Liamiga Rastafari National Council of Liamiga, and many other houses and organizations again trying to organize and centralize Rastafari, and they all would have done their part in their time. But maybe some 12 years ago, Razambo would have called for, again, the unification of I as Rastafari and Sinkis Nevis, and thus the coming together of the ORU. So the ORU would have membership from Nevis, and it has membership from Sinkis. It has organizational members, it has individual members, it also has family members.
Okay.
We do have some races who are not officially members, and some of it is for basically the principles and the guidelines of their particular house. But even so, we have individuals from within those organizations, those houses, who are part of the ORU. Because I think even now, so Rastafari realize the mission that we are on, and that calling to organize and centralize. And of course, the centralization, the organization was met with some opposition.
Of course.
And even within Rastafari.
Yes, I.
So it would have, given I a lot of challenges, but the strength was always there because I was guided, always been guided by the elders. I might have the mouthpiece, but before I speak, I must also go and listen to the elders and take the advice from the elders. And that I think has guided me along the path. I was not the first chair of the ORU. Ras Dabu, he was the first chair of the ORU. And then I would have taken over shortly after. We have had set up our constitution. We're very much structured in terms of having an executive body, which is the chair and the co-chair and treasurer and those executive administrative positions. And then we also have an extension into what we call an executive council, which would extend to members of each territory. Each of the membership would have a rep on that council. And that is actually, along with elders and sistering and youth council, would be the governing body of the ORU. Now, the ORU fashioned its constitution very much of the CRO, because we see ourselves as that umbrella organization, which is one of the roles and responsibilities, which is the objective of CRO. But of course, we had to tweak it to suit the national level. But much of the objectives and the aims and so on fashion CRO, because of course it's it's one vision, one God, one destiny. So that was easy to be done, and so we would have been functioning over the years, abiding very much by our constitution. sometimes, constrained by numbers, we would have had to make amendments and adjustments. But we have been members of CRO for quite some time. St. Kitts Nevis actually hosted its first CRO conference, and Bongo wisely some time back would have mentioned that the CRO would have had a lot of summits leading up, to present time. And in 2001, CRO would have met in St. Kitts Nevis, and that was hosted by the Naya Bingo. And so my initial grounding into CRO was at that conference. I would have gone to Barbados during the reparations dialogue, and of course that was 2007, and of course lots of CRO members were there. Brother Wisely, Ijania, Iral, Queen of Sheba, we had Frankai, and every opportunity when we come out of a session, the Caribbean Rastafari Organization, we will sit down and we would meet and we would gather our thoughts and we would put things together. And that's when I started in depth really learning the ins and outs of the Caribbean Rastafari Organization. And for me, it was what a blessing. This is exactly what Rastafari needs. This is what Rastafari needed, for that next step.
Yes.
And of course, His Majesty would have advised I and I when he traveled to the region. He said our works are purposeful, but we must organize and centralize. And that time has come. It has been here for a while, and for many reasons, it has had its ups and downs, and there will still be ups and downs. But one could only carry on the works of the elders. For me, the being ascended to the chair, being elected to the chair of CRO, that was to me that's a great achievement. Not sure if I was really expecting it, even though I had hopes. When I look at who was around me and the knowledge and years of wisdom that was still way ahead of me, I felt quite humbled when I was, unanimously supported on that mission. And so all of that would add some, as we say, some kick to our local move, the Organization of Rastafari in Unity. It would also make some way for our youngsters or our co-chairs to start moving up and giving I some more time to focus on the more regional aspect. And that is what it's all about. It is not necessarily like the politicians taking each other posts, it's just moving on and carrying on the work.
Serving in different capacities, because all of us have multiple talents and gifts, you know what I mean? So, and the work is plenty. Is plenty. So we give thanks. But I don't want to go so fast yet, because I don't want to skip there. Before we go there, many people don't know where is St. Kitts and Nevis. What is St. Kitts and Nevis? What is it like in St. Kitts and I have lion pride in Tanzania, in Kenya. You know what I mean? They don't know, they just know Caribbean. So what is St. Kitts and Nevis? Where is it? Give us a description of growing up in St. Kitts and Nevis.
If I was to show you St. Kitts and Nevis, it would be it's actually the smallest country in the region,
Okay.
We have about 60,000 people in total. 2 small islands in the northwest of Antigua. So we lodge between Antigua. We are circled by St. Martin. We have in our northwest, we have Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And in the southwest, we have Antigua and Guadeloupe. So we are on the top of the Leeward Island chain. Nevis itself is 36 square miles. St. Kitts is somewhere 68, just about twice the size, and has about twice the population. one of those territories that was and I would dare say still is very much colonial. Would have been, colonized by French and Dutch and Spanish, and eventually been there led by the British for quite some time under the whole slavery era. But we would have gained some political independence in 1983, giving the island some autonomy to handle its own affairs. The present structure, though, which one that we hope to change and really get rid of the colonial figurehead. But more so, the island in itself, being so small, has its ups and downs. It's a small island, so you can find the camaraderie, the togetherness. It's easy, one another, looking out for each other. That type of attitude. Small, so it could also become very political, where politicians would, abuse their powers and threaten people's positions and jobs. I think Nevis would have had its share. We, at this point, I think the Rastafari community within Thinkers Nevis, has grown somewhat. We may be between maybe 1% of the population. I think Rastafari and other faith-based organizations forms about 2%.
So you think you have about 600 Rasses between St. Kitts and Nevis?
We have more than that, man. We have more than that.
What?
And of course, we do have a population where everybody's growing dreadlocks now too.
Okay.
So it becomes a little technical.
Yes.
But in terms of the levity, you can still see it very much so in various degrees.
So you think we have 1,000 between St. Kitts and Nevis, Rastafari,
I would say we have that.
Okay.
We don't see that number in our gatherings.
Yes.
And our celebrations.
Yes.
Because we still have a lot of elder ancient races, very much Irish, who want nothing at all to do with Babylon.
Okay.
Which is quite respected. But we do have some of I who would pay a little closer attention to His Majesty and his diplomatic works, and how he went about making changes and getting things done and being able to take care of his people at different levels, and so thus the whole level of diplomacy and so on. And of course, we still get fire when we have to sit with governments, but no longer with Rastafari be sitting on the wayside and waiting for laws and rules to be made. And then we have protests. We want to be at the table, lending a voice. Whether or not we made persuasions, our voice must be heard and must be recorded.
Yes, sir.
Stands when it comes to certain policies, within the country. So we are very active as an organization. We are rooted in agriculture. Almost all of our
that is key.
Yes, we have a slang. We say food and weed, which really, if you look at it, when we met, we'll touch on that later. It seems to be a regional effort and energy.
Yeah, man.
We are focusing on the herb, as we say, the weed, and our food, because of course self-sufficiency. We can't afford to let them feed us. Once they're gonna feed us, they can determine our health. They can come up with all the statistics and tell us when we're gonna sick and what we're gonna be sick with by what age. So, but we in St. Kitts Nevis, we focus on agriculture quite a lot.
Beautiful.
And we try to adjust and deal with some of the weaknesses we might have had. One of which would have been the inclusion of our queens, our empresses, and our youths.
Okay.
It is still challenging because when we look at all of us, we all grey. And the Rastafari community, you see a lot of 50s and 40s, and and so
So,
if
so
we,
you, the item are not, because this is a problem all over creation. You're not seeing a lot of young adults, and I say young adults is from 20 to 40, and youths is from baby to 20. So you're not seeing a lot of youths and young adults. Is that what they are saying at the gatherings?
basically, yes.
Okay,
Um,
okay. So it's like
but
everywhere else.
but of course, it is not the fault of the youths.
No, could
It is
never.
I
No.
and I who have to be bringing the youths into this world and into the gatherings, bringing our empresses, into the gathering, our
Yes.
friends, our
Yes.
associates, because
Family
I,
friendly. It have to be family friendly.
yes,
It is.
the works of Rastafari that has been done and that is to be done. The establishment of this family, this global family, that is the champion of Africa redemption. It's no easy task, and so it must be done at all levels. And so for me, ensuring that Rastafari and St. Nevis has its rightful place in the legal system, we must, our children, and we would have fought these battles, because up until 2003, not too long ago, our children could not go to school unless they covered the dreadlocks.
Okay.
Up until maybe 2000, um, 2020, 10, 15 years ago, they had to be immunized, vaccinated, But over the years, these are barriers we would have broken. So children, or Rastafari children, and it opened doors to other faiths that do not believe in it. They do not have to vaccinate or immunize their children, you know. I life is of vital levity, and thus preventative medicine is the only way to go. And so I broke that barrier, and I don't have to remove any head covering to take I photos, and I don't have to cover I youth here to go to school. Grooming to I have different standards, than to them. And I love to see our big Congo Nati Naya Bingi, whereas for them they want to see our Rasta youths plait up the hair and all these kind of things. And so we would have gained that level of respect, in some parts of the society. Still a fight.
Still a
It's still a fight.
fight.
Yeah.
So in terms of the topography of St. Kitts and Nevis, I want to just get a better picture. Is it flat like Barbados, or do you have hills, rivers, or is it just beach? And what is the interior like?
Nevis is called Uwali, the indigenous name, by the Kalinagos. No, I think we had Kalinagos, both Kalinagos and Tainos. Uwali was the name, land of good water. St. Kitts is called Liamiga, fertile soil. Both volcanic islands, very, very rich soil. We have
Okay.
black sand in some areas. Nevis is more cone shaped, with a central mountain raising about 3,200 feet above sea level. And then it tapers off to the coastline, where most of the habitation is actually along the coastline. But in the south and the east, they're a little more inland. St. Kitts, same topography, only that St. Kitts has more of a mountain range as opposed to a conical shape in the center. But the mountain range is also in the center. Nevis is shaped like a ball, St. Kitts is shaped like a bat.
Okay.
So the mountain range in St. Kitts runs along the center, whereas in Nevis it's cone shaped in the center. And
Yeah.
again, most of the habitation is along the coastline.
Okay.
We do get relatively good rainfall, not as much as the Windward Islands like Dominica.
Yes.
We are not as mountainous.
Yes.
We do have quite a bit of flat land in St. Kitts Nevis as well.
Okay.
Agriculture has always been one of the most important industry, however, not always recognized that way. You would have
Yeah.
seen tourism and all these other things play a greater role. But we
Yes.
know deep down inside, agriculture is really what it is that will drive the economy if we don't
What
pay attention
what
to miss it.
what are the main staple crops that Saint Kitts and Nevis grow that are remarkable?
We go good ganja. We grow a variety of crops. We are very much diverse. From the banana family, even though we might get slips or seedlings from other countries, you know, we would have perfected a lot of the ground provisions, you know, the yam and the tanya, not in the quantities that we should. Sweet potato. We're even getting deep into pineapple production. We do a lot of short-term cash crops, we call them, the melons and the cucumbers and the peppers. I think that was a shift in our agriculture over the past years.
Okay.
I'm not too sure if I liked it because to me it tend to you're taking away from a lot of the staples, you know. But now farmers are, and the agriculture department is making some efforts. But I think the farmers more so are focusing now on being more diverse, getting back into the ground provisions, some of the long-term crops, the banana and the papaya and the breadfruit, because we realize, you know, we must be able to feed ourselves. We do import a lot of food though.
Yes.
Apart from processed food, we do get a lot of food from the neighboring islands,
What
which
what what are the main imports in terms of food stuff?
ground provisions,
Ground
yam,
provisions.
ania,
Okay.
and of course things like plantain. Also, you're looking at the spices.
And that's
Those
coming in from where? Saint Martin?
no. We actually, some of us actually supply Saint Martin. These
Okay.
are from Saint Vincent,
Saint Vincent.
Dominica, even Guyana.
Okay.
Now, these are places that we get on a weekly basis. We have boats moving through the region. So that level of trade is still very much there, you know. And it will continue because some of the islands are better at growing certain things. And
Yes.
so that is where now we as a collective, and through CRO, we might have to be the one to initiate this where if the island is good for growing yams, then let it be one of our central points for growing yams.
Yes,
And then
sir.
we distribute. You know, if this island has the land mass to grow hemp, which we know can't be grown to close high grade and stuff, then let this island grow the hemp. So I see that as a blessing for I and I. You know, we just now need to each island focus on a few crops that we could
Definitely.
say this is St. Kitts Nevis and this is our export, this is our contribution to the export in the region.
And it sounds like we need to invest in some ships or some ferries, you know what I mean, to transport the goods between the islands. So it's some serious reasoning. Bongo Wisely would tell you we're working on a ITAL certification standard that will be revolutionary for all of these Rastafari crops and standard, because we're working with agronomists from across the world to establish one standard for ITAL, you know, according fully plant-based
Nice.
based inputs, you know what I mean, and
Nice.
and fullness. So that would be something that we can roll out around the region. That will distinguish us from the organic and the vegan and the this and the that, so that we control the highest standard, you know what I mean,
Sure.
regional. So it's a lot of work being done, and I give thanks that the eye is there. What is the wildlife like in St. Kitts and Nevis? They have any wildlife there, or what go on with the?
I don't want to know, Bridgie. You don't want to know because our wildlife, similar to some of the islands, I've seen similar birds and
Okay,
animals.
okay,
But I can tell you, Nevis has an overpopulation of monkeys,
Okay.
invertebrate monkeys. Now,
Okay.
I am going to send out a warning to any island. If you do not have a monkey in your island, put a ban on it. Do not allow them to
Don't
come.
allow them to come. Serious.
Because, listen, man, it's the greatest threat to our food security.
Really?
I think it's Nevis. It
Okay.
has been years some farmers cannot harvest. Our monkey population, I think, is far more than the people.
Wow.
It is very, very serious. It's no joke. As a farmer, I today I was at my farm, and sometimes I have to lift myself up from the level of disappointment, when you watch a crop being destroyed. We have tried, and we have have in place different techniques. It's still not effective enough for the numbers we have.
For the numbers. You try spraying the crops with like cayenne pepper and different things, and
we've done some of that. Monkeys eat blossom, brethren. They don't wait for the food, they eat the blossom. So when the blossom is gone, there's no hope for anything else. They eat the green shoot of the plant, that growing portion of the plant. They pick it out and they eat it. Monkeys would play in your fruit, in your trees, and crush them to the ground. So it is a serious problem.
wow.
We have tried many things. We have tried an electric shock wire, which may take care of your plot, but then you send them over to your neighbor's plot who can't afford the system.
Okay.
We try traps. People eat them. Um, a few people have them as pets, but there is a fight with animal rights when the government try to, they use that fancy term to cull them.
Yes,
But we
yes.
need to cull at least 95% of the population,
Wow.
and then we might need to create some areas, some zoo areas, plant up some fruit trees and sort of keep them contained in an area. But that population has to significantly decrease, or
Wow.
else we won't be getting any food in neighbors. And I'm talking about fruits above the ground, and they
Yes.
go underground for the sweet potato and the yams and the cassava, and they're very destructive.
This is why the Lion Voice Network is so important, family. Did you know that monkeys in Nevis are threatening the crops? I didn't know that. I learned that today. Reasoning with Ras Iroy. If you're just joining us, we have Ras Iroy from the Caribbean Rastafari Organization of St. Kitts and Nevis, the new chair. Big up all of the ones them watching live. Let me see who's in the comments. Barrington Edwards, big up yourself. Johnny Johnson says, yes, Caracom blessed with 3 natural growing seasons plus extra indoor hyponics, making it 4 growing seasons. Ganja industrial complex worth billions. Hemp, yes, 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 for sure. Lioness Love Child said, greetings, all ones and ones. Haile Selassie the first and Empress Menen. One perfect love. If you're watching live, Lion Pride, check in. Let us know where you're watching from so we can feel the love wherever you are on the planet. We are learning. This is our first guest from St. Kitts and Nevis. So me have to get the topography. Me have to get the wildlife report. We have to get the whole thing because I've never been there, and I like to learn so that when we're hearing the information, we have context of where he's talking about, where this brethren coming from. So the monkeys in Nevis, they don't have any natural predators.
As I say, people eat them. They call them tree mutton. Well, it's the only time I would encourage people to eat meat. Eat them up. But dogs are actually one of the natural predators. But
Okay.
once they get in the trees, then the dogs are hopeless. You know, and they move from tree to tree, and they have grown so much. The size of the monkeys now, you really need a powerful dog to challenge a monkey.
Okay.
They're not aggressive towards I and I think, and food is around. If they are cornered, you meet one in your house or on your farm, of course, defending itself, any animal, but most of the times they run away from you after they would have damaged. You could have a quarter acre of melon, and what most people do if you don't have protective stuff, they stay on their farm and they guard their crops. You can have a quarter acre of melon, and you can leave for about 2 hours, and when you come back, that $10,000 that you've been estimating could just be gone, because they would not eat one melon, they would bite all 100 melons. It's something that baffles me as well. Yeah, they would not eat one mango, they would bite 100. Yeah, they move, and they move in packs.
Yeah.
But we also have donkeys. Again, donkeys are running wild. So
Okay.
one has to implement a lot of fencing,
Okay.
especially in Nevis. It's not so bad in Sinkis, but in Nevis, we almost all farmers, we have to fence our property to
And
keep out.
they live in Nevis?
I live in Nevis, yes.
Okay.
I
So
live in Nevis.
serious.
Right.
Do you have any snakes or anything like that in Nevis or St. Kitts?
We have what we call a corn snake, which is not venomous, so it's not harmful. We have a few rare sightings now and then. Might have had one maybe 20 years ago, and then 10 years, you hear a little one now and then. But over the past 5 to 10 years, we've been seeing quite a bit. I've seen about two in my time. But what would have happened? Nevis was one of those islands that grew sugar. And so, of course, snakes were always a big issue in the cane fields. But Nevis would have introduced the mongoose
Okay.
instead of the snake. So that snake population, is not really here in St. Kitts Nevis. But we do still have the mongoose.
Okay, the
Um,
mongoose. Yeah, you can't get rid of the mongoose.
yeah. Basic wildlife, sheep, goats, we cats and dogs, no lions or anything
Yeah,
like that.
no.
Apart from
Green
the
green
Rastafari.
lizards. You have lizards and thing too.
Yeah, lizards, both in trees and on the ground.
Yeah.
Nothing that goes to the size of the iguana.
Yes.
Well, maybe in the mountains that I haven't seen, but
Do you have
around,
iguanas? Do you have iguanas in St. Kitts and Nevis?
we had, and I've heard people say you can see some occasionally, but I've never seen any. But
Yes.
we would have had. We have the normal gecko, as we call them,
Yeah.
maybe going up to head to tail, maybe 12 inches long.
Okay.
Normally, they don't get much bigger. We, again, as I say, heavily into the tourism, and so we would have a lot of the old sugar plantations
Yes.
would have been renovated now into guest houses and hotels
Okay.
and so on. Um, Shamefully still carrying the name, the plantation, this plantation and that plantation. One of the things we hope to change, very shortly, especially with the whole reparations talk. But
Yes.
yeah, that has been, the colonial history of the island. Always the ruins of some old sugar plantation. But Nevis
Serious.
would itself has a political setup that is kind of strange. There's a federal government that governs both islands, but there's also a government in Nevis, well, an administration in Nevis that has certain powers, certain authority,
Okay.
especially over things like agriculture and education. So they can make laws that would be for Nevis and not necessarily affect Sinkit.
Okay.
But it's really a central government, a federal government. Anything outside of Sinkit's Nevis, well, not everything, because within OECS, we are still recognized at times as St. Kitts one island, Nevis a separate island, sports competition and so on.
Yes.
But regionally and outside of that, we go as the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis.
Okay. In terms of the Pan-African vibration, is there a large Pan-African community, or is it just Rastafari, and then most of the other ones are more in a colonial vibration?
Very much colonial still, but I would say Rastafari is of I would say the more significant movement when it comes to the Pan African vibes. There are others. There are a few foundations here and there. There are a lot of individuals who are not Rastafari, who Rastafari would give quite a lot of credit to, who have supported the Rastafari movement in many ways. Some living and some would have transitioned. And so we have a lot of other individuals, you know, who with that same Pan-African mission. There is a department, Ministry of Culture on both islands. Not deep in Pan-Africanism. It has been one of our objectives as ORU, our national organization, to form a Pan-African movement. When I say form a Pan-African movement, we have that in Rastafari. We have Liamiga, we have Brother Kalonji with a part of the 12th, the December 12th movement. We have reps here in Sinkits. But in terms of an office, you know, a central Pan-African office where all of the Pan-African movements, where we can come together, we could have some centralization of information and so on, where we could have space that we can use in collective, where we can have an area where governments can channel funds to fund the agenda. Because apart from I African-centered, Pan-African-centered observances like Black History Month, African Liberation Day, His Majesty Earth Day. If it's not for I, we would hear nothing of these things in the country. And so, whereas the government would religiously budget for Christmas celebrations, we are saying that we have to make them and demand of them for them to also to budget to support Pan-African celebrations. And so it is definitely one of our objectives. And we are going to spread that throughout CRO. You know, again, something that we could touch on later.
Definitely,
but
definitely.
You know, definitely the Pan-African movement is there. But for me to say that there is a national level of consciousness in St. Nevis, I can't. It is very limited. It is very lacking. We can see it. We can see it showing its ugly head ever so now and then, ever so often, in little policies here and policies there. For example, in St. Kitts, youths can go their afro and go to school. They can plait their hair and go to school. Well, we don't break the barrier for dreadlocks, so they can't really touch dreadlocks. But in Nevis, the youths can't go an afro and go to school. They can't plait their hair and go to school. So, you realize what I'm saying? We still see that level of colonialism that's not escaped us as yet. You know, we Rastafari still we have to demand. We actually Parliament, 5 years ago, actually would have recognized Rastafari on that level, giving I that respect within the Constitution as any of the other faith-based or churchical orders. You know, because many of the things that the church were allowed to do, Rastafari was still restricted. For example, the herb as our sacrament.
Yes.
The Sankofa Maccabee case, you know, really slew that situation in St. Nevis by telling them you have your constitution allows for Rastafari to enjoy their sacrament just like the other churches. You can't have a drug act that has 100% prohibition. You have to go back and change your drug act and make allowances for Rastafari and also for private use. You know, so we just like within reparations, cannabis, um, other other organizations or movements within the country. We are very much a part of them. We sit in a lot of these committees, UNESCO, and as long as you're going to have some kind of influence on what happens in our country, then we need to know what's happening. We need to have a say. And so we are very much involved in the community. Rastafarians think Nevis we do a lot of voluntary charitable work with the schools, the youths.
Positive.
We set up a lot of organic gardens within the schools, teaching the children the art of natural, or what they call now organic farming, empowering them economically as well, because the gardens are able to produce a little finance for the school as well. And so we continue to play a role. We try very hard to stay focused and live the creed. Infants cared for, the sick nourished, age protected, and we definitely do that.
Give thanks. So I embrace Rastafari as an adult. So that means that you came up as a Pan-Africanist, and then what was it about His Majesty? What made the I cite up the divinity of His Majesty? And how did I cite, that fullness? How did I come into that fullness?
As I said, after I gravitated towards Rastafari, my groundings in the Nyabingi, the groundations and all the high liberations we have, the lessons, sitting and listening and talking to the elders. My move into Rastafari I was still very empty. So it was a searching, and is day by day as I re-educate myself and allow myself to be re-educated. I was able to see I and myself in history, to see where we stand as a people, where we came from, what is our role and responsibility in this Iowa. And I saw myself having to, as a black man, as an African, having to play my role, learning very much about the works of our ancestors. How could I betray my ancestors? Rastafari gave me that sense of belongingness. We make up our own words every time. It gave you that sense, because no one is rejected, from the scholars, the college grads, to the youths on the street corner, the dropouts, even ones with little mental issues. No one is ever turned away from Rastafari.
Really?
So when you are exposed to such love, because here I am coming out of a church, Methodist church, which I got my first daughter while in sixth form.
Okay.
I was kicked out of school, kicked out of church, kicked out of home, and so it was a youth in a position where you're searching. And when you would have seen the how not necessarily knocking the Christian faith, but to see me, I was a Methodist, and to see how they would have treated me in a situation like that, instead of the counseling arms, they sort of put you on a backbench and say you would have sinned, and so you go away until you clean up yourself again. Whereas within Rastafari, you found the comfort and realizing, hey, all of these doctrines and things, these are not really ours. We come from a lineage of people so far and so deep that all of these modern day teachings are very new, and our greatness is far. When I see the works of Rastafari, because for me it was not so much a religious conviction. For me it was more of a spiritual and I would have, learned more about His Majesty through history and through his
Yes.
teachings, as opposed to from a biblical standpoint.
Yes.
Of course, I learned a lot of that through Nyabingi and my groundings as well. But I was able to see His Majesty also in that, what we might say, secular standpoint.
And what
And,
what were some of the characteristics that stood out to the eye when you studied the history?
his people first, and and he stood up against the colonial powers. And this is what we look for in our leaders, how they stand up against the colonial powers. And His Majesty stood up, and we have seen his work in trying to unify the people. And as I say, I saw that as my calling at a very young age, in terms of unifying and leadership, coming into 4-H and all these different youth organizations. And I saw that principle, that skill of organizing people and standing up for your people, even against the odds.
Okay.
And that for me, that was paramount. Making his appearance at League of Nations, and even as Rastafari, you see where he would have stood on the front line of battle, defending his people. So this is the kind of respect that I would have for His Majesty, and of course, the barriers that he would have broken, the foresight that he had, in terms of, trying to establish the African, the African Union. Well, being able to bring the Caribbean, the African countries and states
Yes.
together.
Organization of African Unity, OAU.
AU, that's exactly. Give thanks. We see that, the AU.
Yes.
His works in that, and for me, realizing again, being a student of history and realizing what is happened and what has happened to us as a people, and what we need to do to regain that glory, Rastafari was definitely my calling, because it was that revolutionary move, I think, was stirred within me. And Rastafari is definitely that. We will shake hands with the government, but we will burn fire on them tomorrow when they step out
Yes.
the line.
Yes. Yeah. And I think now that people are seeing Ibrahim Traore, there's a generation seeing what leadership looks like, unfettered by outside decisions. And then I think people can better overstand a young Rastafari, because everything Traore was doing for Burkina Faso, Rastafari did for Ethiopia. You know what I mean? And probably on a larger scale. But we didn't have social media in the 20s and the teens when this was happening. But it's so important because His Majesty started, created a bank for Ethiopia, 1931, Bank of Ethiopia, purchasing the Bank of Egypt with his own funds and then nationalizing it. Certain things when we see the AES create a central bank capitalized by their resources, Ethiopia did these things, you know what I mean? So the building of factories, Ibrahim Traore building the tomato paste factories, importing tractors on mass, over 400 tractors, and distributing them. These were all things that His Majesty did in Ethiopia. So the blueprint of what that revolutionary leadership looks like, I think that's why it's ignited the spark in the people. What do you think about what's happening in the Sahel region right now?
Tory and the whole movement.
Yes,
It's quite fitting. And when you look at what's happening around the world, and some of us who are deeper into spirituality and you look at what's happening, these are the things that we expect. These are the things that would and should happen, as we say, in this Iwa. Because there must be African redemption, and we would have seen leaders come at different times. I'm gonna make a statement which was of a conversation I heard, and the person was speaking to, the allies that he's trying to make, and they were concerned if he's gonna make some of the same mistakes as, La Bomba and some of these others.
Yes.
But it is something to look for. But at the same time, I mean, these were some of the strategies that His Majesty used. Because actually, when he first approached the League of Nations, they turned their back on him when
Yes.
Italy was invaded in 35. They turned their back on him, but he still went because he if he did not go, he would have been held responsible for not taking it to the highest order.
Yes.
His Majesty knew what they were going to say. He went with a prepared speech, but it shows the diplomacy of His Majesty. And in the end, those who turned their back on him were forced first by divinely powers, and then of course by political powers and will, that they had to support His Majesty in many ways, which of course help I and I to overcome and to have that victory that we celebrated a few days ago.
Yes, sir. African Victory Day.
Definitely. And so I tip my hat, I salute, I am there. I'm a part of that army of Abraham, because I think it's the calling, there's a song by Queen Africa, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he was asking about the voices that gave the people choices. She was
Yes.
asking, we are the voices of Gavi.
Yes. Times like these. That's one of my favorite songs.
Times like these. We are leaders.
Yes.
And I think today we can safely say, we got Torre, man. We got the Virgin there.
Yeah, man.
What is important though is I've seen a serious, a very positive sense of rallying behind him from the people about the region. What I need to see are the leaders.
Yes.
I want to see the leaders take that kind of stand. We have to realize that it's about time we wean ourselves off of the breast of America and England and these places. We have been called to become that sixth region. What are we waiting for? And I think that's definitely the vision, that Tory is having, is living it. He's been fair. He's dealing with it on all levels, because as he rally the international forces, he's still looking after his people in the grassroots and ensuring development, at all levels. Yeah, man.
He just made education free. His Majesty in Ethiopia, from kindergarten all the way through university, while His Majesty was on the throne, was free. So this is why it's so important for us to know the history. So when we see people walking, because His Majesty is Kadamari the first, so he's setting the example for leaders on the continent. He's setting the example from the highest throne of how leadership should go. But the independence movement was co-opted by the West, assassinations, coup d'etat. So we never got to see the unfolding as it should have been. But as His Majesty said, the tide that's sweeping Africa cannot be stayed. No force on earth is great enough to halt or reverse the trend. Its march is as relentless and inexorable as the passage of time. So it was just a matter of time before Ibrahim Traore or the brethren in Mali, Goita, in Niger, and these other brethren were rising. And now Mahama of Ghana just told all of the gold companies they have to leave out of Ghana now.
Rastafari.
Realizing its goal, you know what I mean? So the wave is now catching on. I heard the president of Botswana say you need to be more like Traore. So what you're saying about the leadership, it's starting to spread. Senegal told the French they need to leave. as well. You know what I mean? So it's really a tide that's sweeping. But my question is, and if you're watching live, please let us know where you're watching from. Check in with I. This is the Lion Voice Network. We have Ras Iroy, the newly elected chair of the Caribbean Rastafari Organization, live from Nevis in the Caribbean. We are a global platform bringing the Rastafari voices from all over creation. I want to know now, how does the CRO fit into this energy that's rising in Africa, this rekindled Pan-African fire that has arisen in the hearts of the people? How does the CRO see itself playing a role, or how does Rastafari in the Caribbean fit into this puzzle?
You know, from His Majesty to all I, our works are purposeful. We never gave up. And we would have seen over the late 1970s, officially in 2000, the official Caribbean Rastafari Organization was formed. And it has a deep history, you know, but again, it was the answering of that call, you know, especially out of the stemming as far back as the Trinity Trad, way back that ended in 93, when Rastafari was given that mandate to organize and centralize. And so it started in different regions, but in terms of encompassing the entire Caribbean region, it was basically in 2000 when that name was coined, because CRO at that time had membership throughout the region, not just in the Eastern Caribbean. One of the things that CRO focus on is strengthening the local organizations in each of the territories. Think it's Nevis, Antigua, and Barbuda. CRO is interested in strengthening the national Rastafari organizations. So it's saying to the individual Rastafari, organize yourself, form organizations. It's saying to the organizations, come together under an umbrella. It is not Nyabingi would maintain Nyabingi. 12 tribe remains 12 tribe. Bobo Shanti remains Bobo Shanti. But there's a commonness within Rastafari where there's no difference. And so that is where CRO, the national body, comes in. And so CRO in its wisdom would strengthen the national bodies, and thus would be the strength of CRO. Because being the Caribbean Rastafari Organization, your strength must be from the Caribbean Rastafari organizations around throughout the region. And so in that, we would have been able to establish many subcommittees. And within our objectives and mission, our purpose, our objective of reparation and repatriation is very, very high on the agenda. And so what we see unfolding now is actually things that we would have been preparing ourselves for. We within CRO we have a very active repatriation committee that has been involved regionally, internationally, UN and the continent, and this keeps us on the diplomatic connections. This keeps us connected to Africa, where we speak the language of trade. We speak the language of that unification throughout the region. We speak the language of reparation with resettlement in Africa. CRO actually has a project called Resettlement in Africa, speaking of not just physically going there empty-handed, but a package, a compensatory package, where you're going home with a vision, with a package already ready and knowing where you're going to make your positive input. So CRO lends itself for that type of negotiation, and that is something that is maintained on a very high level. So it actually gives ones and ones the opportunity to start to register for that return. And there doesn't have to be any one set particular day, because people are repatriating on a regular basis. But it looks at it on a more organized reparatory justice approach. Um, CRO is very much active when it comes to CARICOM. We're very much a part of the CRC, the CARICOM Reparations Commission. We had quite a lot to do with the 10-point plan and its implementation, and we also have a lot to do with seeking the revision of the 10-point plan. And so Rastafari has been playing its role on the ground, seeking to build membership and strengthening the soldiers, and at the same time being able to connect diplomatically, and also on the continental level where we were able to set up, memorandum of understanding with our brothers and sisters at home, and most importantly, also regionally with the indigenous people of the region, like the Maroons and so on. We have some memorandums of understanding, because we have realized that even though we say Caribbean Rastafari, this is a whole Pan-African move. And so we now have to be able to embrace that level of that aspect of the Pan-Africanness of CRO, and speaks to that wider inclusion. And so these are some of the areas that we see ourselves directly connected to what is happening, where we can make our contribution, and have been making contribution. But still I must say, I don't want to make it sound like it's too perfect, because we have a lot of work to do.
Yes, yes.
All right. Within the region, within the islands, too many of us as Rastafari are just being Rastafari and not making that being part of the collective, adding to the collective.
Yes.
It is needed.
It's a huge problem, and the problem is that the Caribbean is a literal paradise. So once you have good ganja and you have them settings there, there's no impetus to move to nowhere. That's remember that people are going to the Caribbean for vacation, so once you have your little space down there, it's very hard to motivate the ones them to move. And you don't see starving people in the Caribbean. I've never seen it. Since I've been born, I've never seen a starving person come out. Even mad people in the street are well fed and look very healthy. You know what I mean?
Food. What was it? What's the artist? The youngster. Chronic say, food still a drop off the trees.
Yes.
You can't be hungry of food a drop off a tree, Bridget.
No, it's serious. So I think that's one of the challenges with the Caribbean. A man can always go up in the hills or go one side and he can be airy. But as I've been saying to my audience, I think the world is shifting into a time of war, because the colonial powers are not going down without a fight. Most of our islands are depending on shipping. Imports, they're heavily dependent on imports. So once that shipping is interrupted, which is going to happen, then we are in a situation where the lone lion and lioness is not going to work. You know what I mean? We're really going to need, and we need to start preparing for that now. And this is no matter where you are as Rastafari, because I say this all the time, no one is coming to save I and I, and are we going to be running to the church for rescue, and we don't have our own, and we don't eat like them, we don't, we have all these standards that is not the same as the rest of society. So are we depending on that society to save us when things shut down? That doesn't seem logical to I, you know?
True.
So I ask the question right now, on the spot, is Rastafari ready for Armageddon? Hot seat.
Hot seat.
Hot seat. You're the chair, you know. So what?
Rast-
Make sure your
Rastaf-
answer good, you know.
Rastafari always ready. You know, we're always ready. We do have limitations
Yes.
in what we can handle.
Yes.
But we have been handling ourselves in these regions. I mean, look at how Rastafari has survived.
Yes.
That survival instinct alone. I mean, just name anything that Babylon would have thrown at I would have survived. And so there's no choice. What it takes now is what we see happening with the region, even within CRO, because reaching out to different territories is crucial. You know, we have to be setting up and we have to be strengthening our networks.
Yes.
You know, I mean, we have Rastafari in all corners of the earth. And so in terms of connections, we have no excuse. You know, we are a people, we are African people, we are black people. And if you do the statistics, the amount of money that we spend in these countries, these monies can be invested in our own, you know, and so we have all that it takes. The schools are still run by I. The teachers are still I. So it's not that we don't have the resources, you know. We do have the capacity needs some strengthening, the finance needs strengthening.
Yes.
Because this is one crucial spot. Of course, we've been discriminated against for all these years. You know, we've been a people heavily discriminated against, and even now, so even within the cannabis industry,
Yes.
we still see that the moves that have been made by governments, these moves do not empower Rastafari on an economic standpoint.
No.
You know, cannabis to I is more than sacramental. You know, we used to make money and we still make money from cannabis. And I'm saying, because of these levels of discrimination, Rastafari has endured a life of poverty.
That is correct.
In this region. And that has to be addressed. The governments must make reparatory justice to I, you know, in various ways. Our communities need to be built. I was just in Antigua where we had that conference.
Yes.
And we would have seen a good example of government working with Rastafari. In our own Nevis, we do have a good level of working relationship. We are not so pleased right now with the cannabis laws, but you know, we have been in collaboration with the government. And so this is very much needed, you know, so that Rastafari in the various territories could be empowered. And again, remember when I started off, that is the strength of CRO. That is the strength of the Rastafari collective within the region that connects us regionally and internationally. You know, economics must become a crucial part of INI. You know?
You answer that like a chair, like a true chair of the CRO. You pass the test. You pass the test.
Give thanks, I.
Yeah, man.
But
You
it's
see that?
reality, you know.
No. We love that. We love that. Because you kept it positive, Rastafari vibration. Because some people say Rastafari not ready, this, that. You kept it positive and highlighted. And that's what we need, because it's true. We do have that survival, but we have to do better. And one of the things I'm pushing on this platform is that economics, because I think because most of us are in survival mode, we don't see our power. But even in that survival mode, what I'm trying to get the Lion Pride to see is money is passing through your hand every day. Is where we direct that money. We're not directing it to each other. You know what I mean? That money is not circulating within the Rastafari ecosystem. It's coming in and it's going to bill collector. It's going to this, it's going to that. It's not circulating, and we need to circulate that money so we can create an economic base within the Rastafari community, because the schools that we need to build, the health centers that we need to build, the credit unions that we need to build so that we can loan ourselves money to do development programs, all of that has to be funded by I&I. We cannot depend on the government to have pity on I&I or charity, because that's how they look at it. When we ask them for reparation and they see that we don't have the financial strength, they put us to the side. Government respect money and power. You know what I mean? That's just the reality. So we can't just wait and hope that some philanthropist in the government is going to say, yeah, man, the Ras, them are good and here's a money, Ras. No, we have to start at home. Charity begins at home. So Lion Pride, I don't know what kind of works the brethren do. You know, we're going to ask at the end of the interview for the brethren to share some information where you can send some money to support whatever the brethren is doing. Don't embarrass the platform. We want the hundreds, even if it's $1. Let's get into that habit of circulating the dollar. Give thanks to everyone who supports this platform, but we have to circulate the dollar. And until we do that, we are not going to have that effectiveness. So I really give thanks. We're going to look at some of these comments here. Lioness Love Child checking in from Barbados. Big up yourself. Ras Aya checking in from St. Kitts and Nevis. Me call your name before the interview. You know, as soon as we see the brethren, we say, you know, Ras Aya. And we say, yeah, man. So you see it there. Big up yourself, Ras Aya. Sokor David said, knew nothing about monkeys being so devastating to food production. That is why we're here, Rastafari Independent, not aligned media. The monkey them have to get dealt with. Dallas, Texas, checking in. Peony Wally in the background is a natural phenomenon, acknowledging nature's green garden. Yes. Big up Johnny Johnson, one of our regular elders here. Always have some beautiful contributions. Avril Trotman, Rastafari Love from Barbados. Forward, CRO. Yes, I love what I'm hearing from the CRO. Thank God, Jaja, for this May African Liberation Month. RIP Queen Mother Audrey Moore, reparations fighter, Garveyite. Big up Bongo Wisely. CRO and the RCC needs to collaborate together and reach out to Ibrahim Traore to entertain the setting up of a Rastafari settlement in Burkina Faso. I agree. And there is a group because I spoke with Bongo Daddy Bosco, and Daddy Bosco has shared that there is a group of Rastas in Burkina Faso. So I'm gonna try to see if we can get them on this program. I'll be interviewing a Ras from Nigeria. Daddy Bosco linked me. So we're going to start this month, especially on this platform, start reasoning with some of our brethren from the different African countries. So we want to get the voices of Rastafari on the ground in Africa. So stay tuned. If you're not subscribed and you're new here, I better you subscribe, because this is where the high-level Rastafari Pan-African reasonings are happening. Empress Philippa said, greetings, family. Give thanks for life, health, and wellness. Respect to the CRO and all the members who make take the annual conference. Love and blessings. Blessing my sister, Hamilton Brown. Bless up yourself, Lion Pride, checking in from Massachusetts. Greetings, Ras Iroy. What are some of the reasons that you see prevents people coming under one banner? And what solutions do you suggest? We're going to let him answer that question shortly. Organize and centralize. Empress Philippa said, Adrian Richards, blessing Ras Iroy. Great interview. Give thanks, give thanks. Blessings from Wadadli. Blessing all the Wadadli Lion Pride family. We are here as Lion Pride. So Hamilton Brown, one of we lion pride from up in the in America here is asking, why is it so difficult to put everyone under one banner? What did I say about that?
I say it has always been a challenge, and I've experienced that from the time I stepped into any kind of leadership position. There are a lot of reasons. I think even within Rastafari, we still need to work on self, our development, as individuals. Um, I think I need to pay some attention as well to how I re-educate I thinking, especially when it comes to the collective. Um, Too many negative literature would have passed around I when it comes to partnership and partnership is leaking ship and all these things, and negative comments as to think why you should not get together. Within Rastafari, I would have seen different teachings within Rastafari, where some ones and ones would hold on to the teachings, as we would say, religiously, and some of the teachings would stand in the way of I coming together. Now, remember I spoke about the ORU, which is a model, not a unique model, but it basically saying that you can be Nyabingi. You practice your Nyabingi. When we having a gathering and we decide to worship, if Nyabingi is asked to worship, they do it Nyabingi way. If the 12 tribe is asked to lead the gathering, they do it the 12 tribe way. But what we're gonna find is that some of our teachings and principles actually prevent us from coming together.
Yes.
I could remember hearing from ones from a different house, and they speak about the guidelines that they have, and they would be an associate member, but in terms of what we call a regular member, they can't take membership because of some of these principles. So yes, some of our teachings would have kept us, and remember too, a lot of our groundings were done through the irates, whereas now we are exposed to information and more communication. So even some of the things that we were taught in the past, we would have had to have a relook, not necessarily to change images, but to make adjustments into some of our principles. Um, More teachings of Rastafari is needed. When we gather as Rastafari, we need to teach our livity, whether it's diverse livity, depending on the house or depending on the mansion, but whatever it is, I think it is important that I educate or re-educate I self. Because apart from what we know in our house, all that we would have heard about Rastafari in the past would have been negative. Um, a lot of our regions are small, and I think what affects the ordinary man a lot of times affect Rastafari in terms of finance, um, you know, personalities. We've seen too many of that, where you and a brethren don't get along, or you and a sister don't get along, and so you're not going to the gathering, and you see division of houses. Now, if I see a division of houses, and these houses decide they're going to carry on the works of Rastafari, and somewhere down the line they're able to come together as a collective, it's a strength, because sometimes personalities do get in the way, but it is how we deal with them.
Yes.
These things are not supposed to cause breaking up of houses and division of houses. That is not in keeping with the unity that we preach. So we do have we need some re-examination of ourselves as well, as to how we live within ourselves as Rastafari. Um, even some of our brethren and sisters from different regions, when people migrate to different islands, how well are they accepted within the Rastafari community? you know, and not feel like a stranger or a foreigner.
Yes.
It's challenging enough being a Rastafari, but being a Rastafari in a strange land where you have no support system, you know, these are some of the things that we face. But I still think we need to step up as Rastafari. I think we have not been paying attention to the words of His Majesty, which
Haile.
tells us we must be able to put aside all these so-called petty
Yeah.
differences,
Yes.
man-made differences that has kept us apart for all these years, and realize that our success lies within the unification, those things that we have in common. These are the things we need to build on and add to our strength. And again, we have the words of His Majesty always there to guide us. We just need to take heed. Rastafari.
And that is what unites all of the Rastafaris, that love of His Majesty. And this is why I really see that we have to return His Majesty to the head of the movement, because what has happened is that we have personalities that have risen to various levels, as you say, and are coming with doctrine that are not in keeping with His Majesty, which is what brings us together. And that is why we don't see the progress, because His Majesty have a track record of progress. Rastafari live it. Once you live Rastafari, you're gonna progress by definition of what Rastafari is. So the fact that we don't see institutions being created, that means that there's something wrong in how we're executing the teachings of His Majesty, because His Majesty every week is opening a school or a health center, or, you know what I mean? His Majesty is doing business. His Majesty is running farms. His Majesty is all of these things, you know, because I say right now, Rastafari has to industrialize. You know what I mean? We're at the point now where we have to take from survival, we have to create an industrial movement, meaning we got to scale. You know, when you talk about feeding people, you have to be on an industrial level to do that. You know what I mean? When you talk about export, when you talk about educating children, that has to be scaled into a system. No, it's not just you know, a little classroom or thing. Is you have to create a curriculum. When you talk about an ITAL standard, these things are all industrial things that are happening, and every nation of people goes through from tribe, you know, subsistence to industrialization, and then self-sufficiency. There's no sovereignty without an industrial base, and we have not built that economic base in Rastafari because a lot of people have glorified poverty as righteousness. You know what I mean? And the more poverty you are, the more righteous, you know. And if you have money, you is not a righteous man, because, you know, and these are false concepts. You know? So I really see that. I want to know more about this big conference, this historic conference in Antigua. Take me through your journey coming from St. Kitts and Nevis, because I keep hearing that Antigua is the model. And as a Jamaican, we're competitive, you know. So we don't, you know what I mean? But we hear say Antigua gonna lead right now in a Rastafari settings, you know what I mean? So my Jamaican family, them, we are say, Wagwan, take us to what's happening in Antigua and what happened at the conference.
But Dudley, yeah, man. But Dudley was nice, man. But Dudley was nice. The conference was Isla full, you know. And we were planning it for quite some time. CRO would have met in Grenada, I think maybe 2018 or so, and we had planned to go into Antigua, but then we were hit with the COVID, and so they had to push back. And then at the same time, Antigua in itself, you know, they were rebuilding and strengthening and paying a lot of attention and putting a lot of focus into the cannabis industry, which was, you know, at that time, at its peak in Antigua in terms of the revolution, ensuring they get their share of the good share of the pie, as we call it. And they were also focusing on their tabernacle. So in terms of when we wanted to do it in Antigua, we had to postpone. It was actually supposed to be last year, so we had to postpone until this year. But the word was out there amongst the region. Again, we would have seen a presence from about 10 different islands. We would have seen from Dominica, I start to call, I hope I don't miss any. Dominica, St. Martin, Barbados, Jamaica, St. Kitts, Nevis. We had Guyana, we had Trinidad and Tobago, we had St. Lucia, Dominica. Most of these territories are territories where CRO has membership. We also had ones-on-ones joining us online. Most countries had 1 and 2 delegates. St. Kitts Nevis, I'm proud to say, we had about 18. We had a big contingent going up from St. Kitts Nevis, man.
Nice.
We went up, we really went up and supported the effort.
Did the item fly there, or you took a boat, or how the item reached there?
Interesting, because we had chartered a boat earlier, because the idea was to take a boat, which would have taken us about 2.5 hours, going up, because we'd be traveling more east, southeast. Coming back, it would probably take maybe about an hour and a half. But the boat, in order to make it feasible, it would have taken a certain number of people, which really would have been the better move, because we wanted to engage in some trade, taking up some goods from Nevis and trading in Antigua. But we didn't get the numbers, and so we were forced to take the airplane. We actually chartered an airplane, and some took individual flights. But we were in Antigua for about 7 to 8 days. Most of us would have been there from the start of the conference. I could say, though, attendance at the conference was mostly affected because ones-on-ones within the region, could not afford it financially.
Okay.
Again, we recognize that financial constraint amongst
every community is facing the same judgment.
Right. And so even within CRO should have been at least providing its chair and its secretary with a ticket to these conferences.
Yes,
but we were not able to do that. So Brother Wisely, who was the immediate past chair, still stands on the executive committee. He had to pay his way to Antigua. But anyway, the Antiguan Ras Freeman Foundation, they were the host, along with the Nyabingi House from Big Creek area. The majority of I&I were hosted at the Jolly Beach Hotel, which is a nice hotel in Antigua. So even though we were on a conference, we were able to, to set in a different kind of relaxation, and enjoy some relaxation times between sessions.
Nice.
Others also stayed on the Ras Freeman grounds, which is the grounds of the host organization, where they have their business place, where they have their tabernacle. Brethren, a wonderful tabernacle. I have to send you some photos.
Yes, I keep hearing about this tabernacle. I've seen glimpses.
Oh man, it's a work of art. It's a masterpiece. I really want to congratulate the Ras Freeman Foundation for hosting us in that tabernacle. We were able to experience the tabernacle and have ideas and some of our reasonings. It is just one I've never seen in the region at all. But we were able to have members joining us online as well, from Barbados and Jamaica, and at one point Guadeloupe. So some of our members that didn't make it physically were able to join in online. a few little challenges here and there, but you know, it was accomplished. Um, we, in our wisdom, realized um, that the Wadadli, the Antigua Cannabis Authority, also having their cannabis festival around the same time. And so the brethren from Antigua, Ras Richie, Erasto, and the others who I can't name, but you know, really contributed a lot in terms of assisting the team. They were able to get the Cannabis Authority. Of course, they have a very good relationship to sort of co-sponsor in terms of having their cannabis events, giving I access to the platforms and the panels, also, you know, free access to the activities. And so it was a sort of two-in-one activity. So that was even added for the delegates, but also we were able to discuss cannabis at that level, not just with amongst Rastafari, but with the authority in the host country. And again, I'm reminding you that Antigua has a very good relationship with government and the whole cannabis industry. And that is why we would say Antigua has that model, because there is enough respect to the religious or the spiritual or the sacramental part of the cannabis. St. Nevis also has, I think, a very equitable respect for the sacrament of cannabis as well. Antigua also was able to get a footing in terms of the economics, you know, and so the government really would have made it possible. And even the Cannabis Authority now, I could see, making adjustments to their model in order to accommodate the Rastafari and the community, so that they can gain more economically from the whole cannabis industry.
Okay.
And I think that in itself has enabled the brethren there to carry on a lot of their works in terms of their having their school where they educate their youths, building their tabernacle, establishing their business quarters, you know, and advancing in the production of cannabis as well. So I think, you know, Antigua was a good choice to be the host. We had many sessions. We focused a lot on cannabis and agriculture on a whole.
Yes.
One of the messages we did a press release which reminded governments not to separate cannabis into your medicinal, you know, fantasy, and not recognizing the need for food security and sovereignty. And so again, CRO remarried that line of thought and that commitment within the region, within all our membership, that our effort would be advanced, our effort would be vitalized, renewed when it comes to food security, including food and weed. The sinking slogan, food and weed. Very important, as we mentioned earlier. That was one of the things that was focused on, and one of the takeout of the conference. Also an effort and you know, by CRO to remind and to challenge the Caribbean governments to empower your local farmers so that they could properly and sustainably produce their food and their cannabis. You know, in all aspects, you know, including the financial help that is needed for any of I who wants to get into the medicinal industry. It's a very, very expensive industry, and because Rastafari would have suffered all these years, that is only fitting as a mark of reparatory justice for governments in the region to actually fund the establishment of our industries, our factories, and our grow houses and all of that. This is part of the reparation for what we would have suffered under the whole your illegal drug acts, you know. Um, we also focus on reparation and sent a strong message, because what we would have seen is in 2014 when CARICOM met and the heads of government decided, hey, we are going to take on the fight of reparations. We're going to go back, we're going to establish national committees, and we are going to put a budget together so that they can function, so that they can be the mouthpiece for the region. They can set the links with the region and international bodies to push this 10-point plan that we have adopted. So we had to remind government that they need to be true to their commitment, because many of the Caribbean governments are not living up to their word. They are not properly financing their national reparation committees so that they can execute the programs that are needed. Reparation committees are left to fundraise. You know, this even though will come in at times and is needed, government's supposed to have a budget set aside for this. And so we had to remind governments of their commitment. Of course, we had to take a tour around Antigua. We had to visit the ganja farms, you know, to sit and exhale and inhale, you know, being among some really lovely plants, watching the island being able to grow, you know, the plants as part of their sacramental rite, and also a part of their advantage in being given license within the medicinal cannabis industry. Again, it was a trip to give ideas, to network, to share ideas, so that we too can convince and influence our local authorities to move in similar directions, ensuring that Rastafari is empowered at all levels, you know. And I could say the grades that we had, man, the chalice burn 24/7. The hotel respected the rights of Rastafari, and of course we were able to use our cannabis at the hotel. Of course, at times in areas that just like regular smoking,
Yes, yes.
allowed to go in certain
Respect
areas.
the other guests. Yes, you have
Yeah,
to
man.
respect the other guests.
Not necessarily within the rooms, but more on the balconies and so on.
Yes, yes.
So, you know, the love of Rastafari, we saw a significant effort to produce ital food for the Rastafari at the hotel, and definitely that was in order at Ras Freeman, where we were accommodated for. One of our highlights of the conference again was our elections, which was overdue. We would have recognized that all of the positions and the executive and the subcommittees are due for as we say renewal. Um, we had some concerns as to where we're at, and the presence of ones and ones and the membership, which in terms of the financial membership was not so much up to date. But I would say that many of the delegates came prepared to update themselves financially, because we would have been guided by our constitution, so our financial members were the ones who voted and so on. We had an independent brethren in Brother Marcus, who before leaving the conference would have signed up, applied for membership of CRO, but while he was there, he was basically an associate member. But he chaired the election.
Which Marcus is that?
Goff, I think.
Oh, my colleague. Okay,
right.
man.
Yes.
Okay. Just make sure.
Yeah, man.
Big up yourself, Marcus.
Man,
and what I love is that there was a change of power, because sometimes in our organizations we don't have that change of position, which I'm a big I support that, because it brings a freshness. Sometimes you need that, and also the capacity, because you don't want all of the knowledge to be with one or two people and then they pass away and then the organ fade away, because there's no continuity or there's no succession planning. So the fact that CRO had a full election changing the slate is a powerful, I think, sign and one of the great pieces of news across the Rastafari family globally. And that is why I wanted to make sure that we provide this platform so that the globe, they know that these things are happening, because this is great news. And the I as the chair, I want the I to know that this platform exists for the I. Anytime the I or your team or the PR officer or any, you have any messaging, this platform is here. We're building it for that purpose.
Yes,
so that the global Rastafari family can know what's happening, and we can come together. And I want to encourage all of the CRO members watching, fund CRO, the little monies that you have, the $5, the $10, the this, the that, send it to the CRO account when you can, support the events. We have to fund our organizations. I want to see our organizations be able to hire staff, because most of them are volunteer. And this is a huge problem that we have across all Rastafari. I don't think we have one fully staffed Rastafari organization operating right now on the earth. And that is a problem. We cannot do this. Yes, we're volunteer Ethiopian and we love chant that, and we mean it when we chant it, but that is not a sustainable model for what we have been called to build on this earth. If we're called to build Zion on earth, to build an alternative, to be the example, we cannot do it part-time. We cannot do it volunteer. So we have to fund our institutions like CRO. I hope that I have some information that I can share. I'm going to ask my Lion Pride to send money to the CRO or to support something, because we want to direct that capital. Again, my vision, we're about to hit 40,000 people on this platform in terms of subscriber. My vision is that all of that 40,000 send $10 to one of my guests. That's almost $500,000 right there that we could generate in an hour or 10 minutes. So we have to think about a radical collective economic security. This is what I'm preaching, and I want the I to take this message to CRO as well, because sometimes we feel powerless because we don't have big money. But we do have that 5, that 10, that 20, sometimes even $100 that pass through, that it might go to, you go see a movie. Sometimes just skip the movie and put that money into CRO or into Lion Voice Network or into your brethren who have a business. We have to think like this. And if we get into that habit and we work together, there are more than 1 million Rastafari in creation. That means we can generate $1 million. If everyone give $1, we can generate $1 million every day. So money is not the issue, is what I'm saying to my brother I-Roy and to the global family. It's how we channel that money, the frequency that we're on. We have to heal ourselves, to trust each other, and to have faith that we can do with money what money is there to do, which is to build and to generate. And I'll add this, and then we'll get some final words for the ICA. We're gone over 2 hours. We add this, is that we are on a timeline. How much longer will the money in the West have value? This is another question. If you're watching the time and the fall of Babylon, then you will know that the fiat currency doesn't have a lot of time. This is why the price of gold is skyrocketing, because all of the central banks around the world are hoarding gold. They're buying gold. I think gold is at $3,500 an ounce now. They're saying it's going to get up to 10,000. This is one of the reasons why Ghana nationalized their gold. This is why Burkina Faso, everybody is nationalizing their gold, because gold is the original currency, and gold is the currency of war, they say. So anytime you see that happening, the nations are preparing for war. China is buying gold like wow. Japan, all of these central banks. Check don't believe go check it for yourself. So these are the indicators that we have to know as Rastafari family. While we have this fiat currency, we need to put it together, purchase land, purchase machines, equipment, prepare ourselves so that we can be self-sufficient. But hoarding up that money and trying to survive as the lone lion and lioness, this is not the time for that, family. I tell the them that. My brother, this was such an honor and a privilege to really reason with the eye. The eye is doing great work. I have so much confidence in, and I understand why CRO chose the eye as the chair, because the eye really treading within a statical order, and I really give thanks. For the eye. I'm going to read a few more comments and then I'm going to give the eye a chance to say your final sound. Um, Organize and centralize, yes. Blessing to Ras I-Roy, great interview. Blessing from Wadadley, yes, Wadadley checking in. Greeting to the CRO and the Lion Pride. Big up yourself, Josh Showers, Desmond Gordon. What about Ethiopia World Federation? That's what the king said should be the right way. Hold on, until then Rasta will be divided from Canada. All right, Desmond. We will have to big up EWF every time. We cannot go around EWF. But I say EWF is not just for Rastafari, it's for the black peoples of the world. We have to have a part in that, but we also have to have our institution for us because we're a peculiar people. We can't ask EWF to take up the sacramental issue, for example, as a priority. That is something that pertains to I and I. Reparation for the sacrament, certain things pertain to I and I. So it's not an either or, it's a and both. You know what I mean? So that's how I see with EWF. Big up my EWF family. Gideon Force, Glory Rastafari, blessings. Very proud to hear our elder representing on such a high level. You're making the youths proud, Ras Iroy. I tell you, I told you, he's a good chair. Me try me put him on the hot seat. And him say he's a fireman. You can't put him on the hot seat, Ras. Very good and timely discussion. Very good host questioning. Give thanks for that, King. We try our best. We're learning as we go as well. Precisely. Hamilton Brown, big up yourself. Rastafari is a new race. We have to be members of a new race. Yes, I. Give thanks for the representation, Elder Iroy, Lionel Stevens, bigging up the elder. Give thanks, Haile Selassie is our king and is the touching point for us all. Yes, I see him so. Jamaica TV, radio, Jamaica, checking in from Jamaica. Jamaica is one of our biggest audience. Big up my Jamaica family, them. Yasan Tafari from Nevis, but based in California. Enough respect, Ras Iroy. Congratulations on your new position in the CRO. Enough respect also to Bongo Wisely, who held the position as well. Bongo Wisely is one of I and I elder. Give thanks for the great works from Wadadley, Antigua, and throughout the Caribbean, Africa, worldwide. Strength and power, Rastafari be praised. Yes, I give thanks, King. We give thanks for all of the comments. Him, for the first time, Africa has learned what strength there is in unity. Definitely, definitely. For time to get unity without money. Good reasoning. Yes, I. Definitely, family, we are here putting connecting the dots. I want to big up all of the Rastafari independent, non-aligned media platforms. You talk about what Dudley, I have to big up the Honorable Priest Isaac and his platform from Antigua as one of the pioneers in Rastafari independent, non-aligned media. I have to big up all of the others who have been lighting the torch and really shining the light, you know what I mean? I and I are rising now, but there are many more. And again, we have to support all of these platforms. So go support Ras, Honorable Priest Isaac. Go and support Ija Star, my brethren in the UK. Go support Rastafari TV, iYard Radio. We have so many platforms that are doing the work, not just I. So, again, the concept that we are pushing right now to help Ibrahim Traore to be a part, to make Rastafari claim our place in the Pan African um, struggle. We have to have capital so that we can fund. I want to see all of our institutions have full time staff in the next 2 to 3 years. You know what I mean? I think it's doable if we use the crowdfunding model and we also create products and services and we support ourselves and circulate the dollar. But that has to be our goal, that all of our institutions have full-time staff that are being paid at competitive rates where they can support their family and not have to be struggling to do Rastafari, have to, and then after they finish their hustle, then they have to do Rastafari work. That's how we've been doing it. We have to transition from that family, and we cannot do it if we don't believe in ourselves. And we say we born believe, someone we say we know, but we're not acting on what we know. You know what I mean? We're just saying we know, but we're not doing what we say we know. So make we do what we know. All right, family. So give us a final word. So this is part one, please. You have to come forward. This is only the beginning and not the ending. Give us your final sound in terms of greeting the family and and some word sound, as the chair of the CRO. Leave us with some inspiration.
Aye. Yes, I want to give thanks again to the land for just really giving I the opportunity. It's a blessing. But even more so, I must stay humble because I give thanks to the elders because I would have heard of their struggles, and I see my works as a continuation of the struggles, and so I must see my achievements as achievements of the elders as well, because many of them are not here today because of discrimination. They're not here to, as we say, to full joy some of the fruits that I are reaping. Some of them are not here to enjoy, being able to go against a plant without looking over their shoulder. And so, I want to just always remember the elders in our struggles, remember our ancestors, and of course, pay attention to the youth that we have coming forward. CRO needs the help of ones and ones, physically and financially, in order for CRO to accomplish its objectives, and satisfy its mission. It's really going to take that collective move within the region. Um, I always stand open when it comes to discussions and advice and information from ones and ones. It is so easy for I now today to come together on different platforms. And so communication can no longer be an issue. Again, give thanks for the word sound. I too would have learned quite a lot from listening to the eye and even some of the comments that we had shared. Want to give thanks specifically to my support, the organization of Rastafari Unity here in Sinkis Nevis. They've really supported me through the ups and downs and, prepared me to be able to step up and represent them well at CRO level. And I give thanks for ones and ones, kings, queens, elders, and youths. Our work is not yet over. Yeah, man. Hail His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie and Empress Menen, our great ancestors, the great gods and goddesses of our ancient black eternal race. Yeah, man. One perfect love.
Give thanks. And I just realized I have to acknowledge the first time I heard about CRO from my great sister, my elder, Mama Ijania, who,
Aye,
you
aye.
know what I mean, was the one who used to always come and share with us the updates and fly the CRO banner. You know, she lives in our hearts, one of the most beautiful souls that you could ever. That is one of my joy in life, to know that I had time to spend with such a beautiful soul, you know, in the earth. And we miss her dearly, but we know her energy survived. So I had to just big up Mama Ijania, and CRO family know who me I talk about, and why, you know, we have to
Yep.
take that time to big her up, you know. But yes, family, so we are here. We are not going to stop this movement. We are building an ecosystem again. Can you share how, if someone wanted to send some funds to CRO, how would that be done to support
Um,
the work?
well, they basically I don't have a number, an account number.
Is there a
So
website?
they basically have to make the contact, and then we provide them with the
Okay.
information.
Okay.
Once you go on and CRO, Caribbean Rastafari Organization, it's just going to take you right there to whatever contacts. Um,
Okay. So
but
there's a website.
no, we don't have a particular website. We do have um, our public relations team right now, and these are some of the things that we are rebuilding. You
Okay.
know, in terms of being able to stay in the communication line. You know, setting up website, having different pages on the various platforms, and so on. So these are works the PRO team is engaged in. You know, but I'll be able to provide some information to the
Yeah,
eye that we
man.
can share. You
Yes.
can share with your wide
Definitely.
audience. You
We
know,
are here. We are here for the item, and when your PR team is ready, I will interview them. We'll have a reasoning with them around, you know, the PR aspect, and they can share whatever means. And I will be preparing my audience to give that support, because, as I said, we want 40,000 to give $10. That's my dream, you know. That's my vision.
nice.
40,000. When we hit 40,000, I want everyone $10. Even every month, if we can commit to $10 to someone, you know what I mean? Make the capital flow. That don't hurt no one individual, you know. But if that land in one individual account, you have capitalized a business for go and do some serious work, you know what I mean? And we would ask the ones them to employ other Rastafari ones and free, and you would see the chain of freedom start to spread just by that radical economic collective security. We have to implement time now, family. Implement. We have to prepare. The shipping will shut down. The Armageddon is here, like I said. India and Pakistan is at war. You know what I mean? Yemen is at war. They're threatening Iran. They're doing all this Ukraine, this, that, Congo. The Sahel states are being threatened. We're going into a time of great chaos, instability, and we must be prepared to feed and clothe and shelter ourselves. We cannot take for granted that the government systems and these things will be in operation, or that we will be prioritized if things get scarce. So we have to start to prepare wherever we are as Rastafari people, come together, start to prepare, come with a plan, spend amongst each other, get used to circulating your dollar amongst each other. So we're not going to stop sounding the trumpet. We are here. Lion voice is strong. We are growing. We will get the victory and we will win. Why? Because the time has come for the lions to tell our own story. And this is the lion's voice.
This is Warrior King, and the time has come for the lions and the lioness to tell their own story. This is the lion's voice. Give thanks and praise for the wonderful blessing that's been poured on me. Give thanks and praise. Jah use I as an instrument to set the people free. Jah give her the powers to chant. Jah give her the powers to chant. Rastafari, the lion's voice.
What are you waiting for? Come together, calling from near and far. Know who you are. What are you waiting for? Rally up, it takes the dust. What are you waiting for? Ancestors paved the way for us. Yes, I am Ketis Oyonde, asking, what are you waiting for to come together? The time has come for the lions to tell our own story. This is the lion's voice.
Yes, Jah people, this is Michael Shemai representing. I will say, hear the lion voice, saying it is time for the lions and the lionesses to tell their own story. King David killed Goliath with a stone, we original dread.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Rastafari, live it.
Amina, the time has come for the lioness to tell our own story. No surrender, no retreat, we are Jaja soldier. Rougher than the streets, tougher than a boulder. Bigging up Lion's voice. Now put it. I Jalifa said that.
I will never stop, hail the Most High, and I will never stop, call Rastafari. Blessed love, this is Kushite representing for the Lion's Voice. We are here to tell our own story, Rastafari.
Yeah, David Dread of Steel Pulse, and I'm saying hail to the lion voice because it's time that the lion have its voice, have its own story. Says I'm stepping out here. Hear me now. Oh, yeah, the lion's voice. Raw.
Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice.